It's probably riskier if your kid wants to open a restaurant, for example, than become a creator. How many restaurants go out of business every year?
Welcome to the 9 to 5 Quitters Club, the podcast uncovering the creator entrepreneurs at the forefront of a work revolution and calling the shots when it comes to how they spend their time. Today, we're speaking with Leah Haberman, a media marketing expert with decades of experience. Leah is the creator of the popular newsletter In Case You Missed It. With over 25,000 subscribers, Leah successfully managed to leverage her newsletter to leave her corporate job and build a thriving business. In this episode, we talk about how the pandemic spurred her journey to become the internet's mentor.
The second time that I got laid off during the pandemic, I was like, okay, this is actually a thing and I can make a go of it.
Her seasoned perspective on how creators are leading the future of business.
The new way is you build the audience and then you figure out what is the value that I bring to these people? What is the business or the product that I can then create and launch?
And make sure you stick around till the end for Leah's top advice for how you can be the creator that every brand wants to work with.
Am I looking at them just because it's an enviable brand and everybody wants to partner with them? Or is this genuinely a brand that I speak about regularly?
This episode is packed with thoughtful insight on how to de-risk the process of building a content business and where to focus your energy to make sustainable money as quickly as possible. Let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Leah. In this journey to become the internet's mentor, what was that moment when you realized or when you made that jump to this could be your business, this could be how you survive and make your living?
I was working when I started the newsletter, went through 2 different layoffs during the pandemic, as so many people did. I was glad that I had the newsletter to sustain me, especially at the beginning. During the moments when I wasn't working full time, it was something to do and it just kept me rolling. And through the newsletter, I got some consulting jobs, the audience kept growing, and then I had brands reach out to sponsor the newsletter. And when it got to, I would say, a critical mass, both of audience, of paying subscribers to the newsletter, of brands reaching out with sponsorships, and of consulting clients, that was the stage that I realized the second time that I got laid off during the pandemic. I was like, okay, this is actually a thing and I can make a go of it. And this is the direction that I'm going to take because I have a little bit more control now, or not a little bit, I have a lot of control now over what I'm doing. Everything's so volatile. I think the layoffs, especially in like tech and media, have continued since not only during the pandemic, but post pandemic. There's a lot of instability, there's a lot of volatility. And so it was at that point where I saw enough subscribers, enough paying subscribers, enough sponsors, enough consulting clients that I felt comfortable to do this because I, again, talk to a lot of younger creators and students. I would never recommend that somebody does this from day one. Don't quit your day job and then decide, okay, I'm going to
Sure.
launch a career as an expert, a creator, an educator, whatever it is. Don't do that. Wait until you either have the savings to sustain you as you're working out the bumps in kind of entrepreneurship, or make sure that you've got enough of an audience, enough sponsors, enough consulting clients that it's not going to hurt you. If there's a slow month, for example, you don't want to be scrambling because you've left a full-time job with no clear kind of exit or backup plan for what you're doing.
It sounds like there was a financial flag you saw, like that you had reached this point where it was a smart and safe move.
Yes, I'm at least when it comes to my own career, I think I'm probably pretty fiscally conservative, and I think it depends where you're at in life as well. I have a mortgage to pay, so I need that recurring revenue to come in to pay the mortgage. I think if maybe if you're living at home or you're living with a bunch of roommates or you're just in a financial situation that's a little bit more safe or sustainable, you might start your journey earlier than I did. But I just, yeah, having seen it and like I said, mentored students and young creators, my biggest piece of advice there would be to make sure that there is something there to sustain you versus just saying, okay, I'm going to do this now with no clear path to how are you going to pay your bills?
In that next 6 months or a year when you went and just went full time in your own business, was it kind of a rocky lift when you went into it? How did you maintain the energy to keep it growing?
It was relatively easy. We all had started working from home during the pandemic, and I think I'm at a level in my career that I'm pretty self-sustaining. I think that it's a good path for somebody who is motivated, who doesn't need somebody else around to tell them what to do or what to focus on. So I think if that's your personality type, you're always looking for projects, you're looking for side hustles, you're always thinking of new ideas and businesses that you could launch. I think that's great. That's the kind of person that I am. We had already started working from home, so I was very used to already working independently and then connecting with the teams that I was managing through Slack or whatever we were using. So for me, it was I would say it was a fairly easy transition. That's not to say that every once in a while, I wish there was somebody older, wiser, with more experience that kind of called me and said, "Hey, I really think you should do X, Y, and Z." That would
Mm.
be great. I think we're all, even the mentors are looking for mentors and questioning, am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right direction? But for the most part, I was fairly comfortable with it. It was a fairly smooth transition for me.
Did you have a mentor in that process?
No. Looking back, mentors take many shapes and forms. For a long time in my career, I felt like I had no mentors. Looking back, there was one of my bosses very early on in my first major job out of college who later I realized took that mentor form without it being formally called a mentorship. And there's a lot of advice that she gave me, for example, or things that she said that I remember, lessons that I learned. So I have had one mentor, but other than that, I don't think I've had a lot of mentors, and I miss that, or I regret not having
Mm.
more mentorships. So I think part of what I do is kind of a response to me feeling like I wish there was somebody around who would have given me some straight talk, some advice, and told me, "This is what matters, this is what doesn't. In the span of your career, here's what you should be thinking about." So I think that I'm essentially trying to do that for other people in a way that I wish I had more of that myself.
That comes up naturally every time I talk to creators. One way or another, they're building what they didn't have and trying to give that to other people.
Yeah.
In that process, when you started going full time, or even still at this point, are your friends and family supportive? Do they get what you do? Was it easy to get them on board?
My mom and 2 best friends and my husband read my newsletter every time it comes out and like the newsletter, will text me comments, so I'm very grateful. I feel like that little tiny core audience is very important. Like, it makes me happy when I see that
Mhm,
those people have read my newsletter, like the newsletter. I would say, yeah, everybody has been pretty supportive. I think we are so far along. I think if I had done this 10 years ago, people would have
mhm.
questioned more. What are you doing? Like, why do you not have a full time job? What do you do all day? Junior me, when I was a social media manager, you get the jokes about, so you post Twitter and Facebook updates all day long. Yeah, sure, but there's a lot more to it. But I think in this day and age, I think people are much more comfortable with the idea. Actually, as I say that, I do feel like I've been interviewed by different media outlets who do ask, I think especially traditional media outlets that kind of struggle with the idea of what are creators and influencers? Like, why do they not have full time jobs? How do they make money? And part of what I say, and also as a teacher to kids who want to become influencers whose parents are confused, is think about this is essentially like a small business. They are entrepreneurs, they're launching a small business. As long as you're smart and strategic about it, it's not easy. I would not say becoming an influencer or creator is easy, but if you are smart, if you have a value proposition, if you have a target audience, if you think about all of the things like where's your money going to come from? How are you pushing that forward? How are you looking at multiple revenue streams? It's very much a business. And I think it's probably riskier if your kid wants to open a restaurant, for example, than become a creator. How many restaurants go out of business every year? So I think there's a certain degree of risk to every career. This one, I think your audience is probably much more comfortable with the idea of being a creator, being an entrepreneur, being an influencer, for example. But yeah, I do think there are certain segments of the population or certain groups of people that do question the validity of this. And certainly, I've been able to explain to them that it's okay. Your kids are going to be okay. These people are going to be okay. There is a path forward. You just have to be smart about it. Like any career, you just have to have a game plan or kind of a roadmap of what it is that you want to do and how to get there.
This industry is still quite early, and there aren't many roadmaps for exactly how you do this. And so people don't quite get it. You're in a unique space because you've built enough authority as a creator to now be getting contracts and working with brands that would have previously gone to like agencies and stuff like that. Was that something you recognized as an opportunity right away? Was that a core element? Like, I'm going to target businesses? How did you fall into that model?
Listen, I've worked in corporate, so I understand that's where the budgets are, right? Like, you've always gotta be thinking, "How am I gonna earn money? What is the most sustainable way to earn money? Who has the most money?" People don't necessarily have the most money. So, if you're asking for subscribers, for example, to pay for you, it depends who your audience is, where they're at in their stage in life. That's not always the easiest way to earn money. I think certainly brands, big corporations have, like I said, they've got money, they've got budgets to pay for creators. So, very early on, just having come from a background in hiring creators, I knew that part of the way I was going to move forward was a two-pronged approach of either brand sponsorships or brand consulting projects. And that was going to be probably for me the most lucrative part of my business. So I do have paid newsletter subscribers. I do other things. I do have other sources of revenue, but I think the brand work is the one that for me at least is most lucrative. And I think it's really important. I think like anybody, it's follow the money, understand where the money is going to come from and how you can make that happen. And I think it's always good, especially if you're thinking about this and you're going into business, you've just got to approach like, who is my customer? Who is my paying customer? And do I have enough of them? And are the budgets big enough for this to be a real thing for me?
We'll be right back after this brief message. This podcast is brought to you by Teachable and therefore has no sponsors. So we just wanted to take a second to go encourage you to check out Leah's newsletter in case you missed it, where she helps you become the marketing superstar every agency wants on their team with weekly creators and social media pro insights to make you better at your job. Creators like Leah are the reason this podcast exists, so supporting them helps support our ability to bring you more of their stories and lessons. You can find more from Leah at leahhaberman.substack.com, which is also linked in the show notes or description wherever you're watching or listening. Okay, now back to the episode. Coming from being a talent buyer, was it easy for you then to be on the other side? Did it still take a while to refine your pitch and get those budgets in your pocket?
It's been relatively easy, and I think to pat myself on the back, I think I'm a pretty good creator to work with because I understand. I send links, I send analytics, I send notes,
Mm-hmm.
thank you notes. Everything's delivered on time just because I understand how much pressure they're under, how little time that they have. So I try and be as easy a person to work with as possible because that is a big part of being a creator or an influencer. And I remember that if you are a dream to work with, if you deliver everything on time, that goes a long way in getting recurring contracts. I think the biggest surprise to me has been either brands that come to me that don't want to pay and want me to do something for free, brands that underpay me, or brands that don't understand the marketing funnel and ask me to share a message if I've never worked with them, if I don't think my audience is aware of them, and ask me to put a hard sell into my newsletter when we've completely skipped the awareness and consideration phase of the marketing funnel. So I think that's been the bigger shock to me, especially as somebody who teaches marketing and influencer marketing. I'm like, "Hey guys, like how it's 2024. Go back to the drawing board. I don't understand why would you approach me of all people and ask me to do something for free, for example." Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Whether it's me or anybody else I advise, that era has gone. Yeah, just go back to the drawing board. So I feel like sometimes I'm almost providing a little bit of education, not to the regular brands that I work with, but there have been a couple of one-off partnerships where I was a little surprised with how things went down and they didn't turn into recurring partnerships, and I wasn't surprised because it was a mess from the beginning.
How do you target a good fit and then nurture that into a contract? Top piece of advice you could give for your initial outreach or how you're sourcing a brand?
That is a good question. I would say I know you said top pieces of advice. I think I'm gonna give 2 pieces of advice. One is in thinking about dream brand or North Star brand? Is it a natural fit? And have you talked about this brand previously? If your North Star brand is Abercrombie and Fitch, if you have never worn Abercrombie and Fitch clothing, if you have never talked about them organically on social or in any material that you are putting out onto the internet, that really isn't your North Star brand. You've got nothing to back that up. So you could reach out and say, I love your brand. I want to partner with you. Here's my ideas for what I want to do with you. But they're going to look at their mentions and see we've got these thousand other creators who have worn our clothing, talked about us online, shown up to our events, for example. And so those are the people that they're going to go with. So I think you need to think about, is this really, am I looking at them just because it's an enviable brand and everybody wants to partner with them? Or is this genuinely a brand that I use and speak about regularly? So I think that would be my first piece of advice before approaching a brand. Of course, part of that is also following the brand. People reach out to brands and say, I love your brand so much. I'd love to partner with you guys. And they don't actually follow the brand on social, which is a huge red flag. And
Yeah.
then I would say, after the pitch process, once you've hopefully landed something, like I said, be easy to work with. Obviously, it's special to you. You are a special person. That campaign might mean everything to you, but it could be one of hundreds or thousands for that brand and that marketing manager that is managing hundreds of creators. So I think be a dream to work with. Turn things in on time, understand what you're supposed to deliver and what the goals are. And if they don't tell you, ask them, hey, I want to understand just so that we really knock this out of the park and make this campaign a success. Are you trying to sell stuff? Are you trying to just raise awareness? Are you trying to drive people to an event? What is it that you're trying to accomplish so I can help you reach that goal? Send your analytics, just be really easy and pleasant to work with. And that really helps not only in the brand wanting to hire you again for recurring campaigns, but also influencer marketing managers, directors, agencies all talk and the news travels. People will say, listen, this person was a dream to work with. I loved working with them. So good, delivered on time, did all the right things, really helped us. And so your name will get passed around. So I think, you cannot underestimate the value of being a good business partner.
From our perspective, more and more brands are prioritizing creators and working with creators. How is it feeling from where you're at?
I would agree with that. I think at this point, we keep seeing the data of influencer marketing spend is outpacing social ad spend. Influencer marketing spend is growing, TV ad spend is shrinking. So it certainly seems to be going in that direction. What I would say has shifted is very much a focus from early days. We're talking 6, 7 years ago when it was just getting started. People were just looking at follower count. That was pretty much the prerequisite for hiring a creator and influencer. People would look at follower count and just assume they've got 2 million followers. I'm going to reach a bunch of people. That box is checked. We're doing that. I think what has happened is people are much more interested in niche or expertise. So instead of just reaching a huge, wide, varied audience, they're looking very much for a targeted, qualified audience. So they're looking for the people that are speaking to a very specific audience, which means I think more smaller creators are getting opportunities that maybe they weren't previously. That's definitely one trend that I've seen. The other trend I think is in people, and I alluded to it a little bit in when you're pitching your North Star brand. What I'm seeing a lot is brands are going back to their old favorites. They're looking at the people they've worked with
Mhm.
previously or who are already a super fan of the brand and working with them. I think they're less receptive now to, sure, we've never worked with you, we've never heard of you, you're not in our mentions, but we're gonna yeah, let's do it and we'll see what happens. We've moved past, I would say, the experimental phase of influencer marketing and starting to go with things that are more reliable and predictable. I don't think by any means that influencer marketing is set. It is still the Wild West. Like you said, it's still very early in the industry, but I do think that we've moved past that very initial phase of ton of followers, great, let's pay them and just see what happens. We've got no baseline for this. Let's just throw some money at the problem and see what happens. I think that people are being asked for what is the ROI? What are we going to get out of working with this creator? We want results. We want performance marketing. And so I think that, like I said, there's more of an emphasis on predictability and understanding who it is that you're working for and what they're going to be able to do with you. So I think there's still opportunity for new creators to get partnerships, to get deals, to find opportunities. But I do think either having an audience that is super dedicated around a specific topic is very interesting to brands, or being a super fan of the brand yourself and being very outwardly demonstrative of, I love this brand organically. I mention them, I tag them, and that's what they're gonna look at.
How do you talk to a brand about measuring the success of a campaign or measuring the success of a collaboration?
I think measurement and attribution is still the number one thing that people talk about as a problem, and it is a mix of science and magic. There is something about influencer marketing that is a little bit of pixie dust that we're sprinkling. I don't know that I have the perfect answer. I think a lot of people are struggling with that question. I think that, of course, looking at depending on what you want to achieve, whether it's, like I said, an awareness campaign, whether it's conversions on the brand side, you're looking for specific people that maybe a pure creator is great for an awareness campaign because they're creating content that is so wonderful, so funny, emotional, shocking, inspiring that it gets a lot of eyeballs on it, but that person isn't great for a conversion campaign. I think that's on both the brand and the creator and or influencer to know exactly what they're getting out of this partnership and from the creator influencer side, like what is the value that I deliver? Is it amazing content? Is it a dedicated audience that when I say click this link, go to this event, read this article, buy this lip gloss, I see my followers convert. So I think it's understanding what is the value that you offer. Don't take a campaign that is proposing the opposite because it's going to be really hard for you to deliver on that successfully. And from the brand side, I think it's the same thing. Understand who you're going into a partnership with and understand the value that they provide. And don't hire somebody, an amazing creator that creates fantastic content that has the potential to go viral, but then expect conversions because that is not their audience and that's not the way that their audience interacts with them. These are business partnerships. Both sides need to understand what the other side brings to the table.
That harkens back to what you were saying, right? Make sure you understand the goals, make sure you know what they want. For you personally, are there types of campaigns that you just won't touch because of that? Because your audience doesn't do certain things? Or do you try and work on the systems to help your audience do those things so you have a wider breadth of campaigns you can work on?
That's a really good question. At the beginning, I think I was more likely to try any campaign just to see whether or not the audience would respond. And so I was a lot more receptive to, sure, we'll do this or we'll try that. As I've seen what's worked and what hasn't, at this point, I will opt out of. If somebody comes to me and says, can we do an ad in your newsletter promoting a 2-week discount to our software, for example. They've never worked with me before. They're not necessarily a well-known name in the space. At this point, I won't take it because I know I can't deliver on it. What I've seen consistently, whether it's organic content or whether it's sponsored content, my audience loves. They love webinars, they love data, they love learning, they love information. So, a white paper, a report, a webinar that you're producing or promoting, that is the stuff that my audience loves. I think it makes sense because it fits in with the content that I'm giving, which is very educational content, data-based content, like insights into Gen Z versus millennials, for example. So that makes a lot of sense. So at this point, I'm far enough along and comfortable enough to be able to say no to people that come to me and aren't offering the type of sponsored content that I know my audience is going to respond to. It's not worth it at this stage because if I put it in there and the audience doesn't respond to it, it also interrupts the flow of their experience when they're reading the newsletter. So it's not a great experience for them. It's not helpful or valuable for them. And because they don't respond to it, the sponsor is not going to see the clicks to their website, the signups, downloads of their apps, or sign up for the free trial, for example. So they're not going to be happy, probably not going to hire me again. So it's a lose for all of us. Every time you have a sponsorship, you have to think about it's a three-way party. Is the audience going to like it and get something out of it? Is the sponsor going to be happy with the results of the campaign? Do you like it and foresee that either you're bringing value to the audience or it's going to result in a recurring partnership with the business? And if you're not able to check those three boxes, then it's probably not worth it for you.
Regardless of all of this, the other element to making this all work is the platforms we work on. And they
Yep.
change and they don't ask us if we want them to change. As someone who's very in tune with that changing space, Do you feel like there's a platform that's really creating a place for creators to thrive and prioritizing creators' opportunities?
Yes, I have two answers to that question. I do think, not just because I'm a newsletter writer right now, I do think newsletters are really interesting. I do think it's a very intentional, dedicated audience. They sign up for your newsletter, so they're giving you their email. They click into the newsletter and then they read the newsletter. So I think it is an audience a little bit like people have compared it to podcasts where the person that is there is very invested in the content that they're about to consume. It's not just a fluke. They're not scrolling and accidentally discovering you. They are making a conscious choice to subscribe and then read. So I do think that's interesting. Will it last? That I'm not sure how long. Newsletters are having a moment right now. Like you said, platforms change, technology changes, format changes. I don't think that 10 years from now necessarily newsletters are going to be the thing, but I do think right now and for the at least the next few years, I think it's a very interesting space to be, and I think it's a way for brands to be able to reach very intentional specific audiences. My second answer, if I was a video creator, I'm not. I wish I was. I'm not. If I was, I would go on YouTube. I think
Hmm.
YouTube does the most to support creators. Once you have a certain amount of subscribers and a certain amount of views, you get into the YouTube partner program, you start earning ad revenue on your videos. It's much more predictable and sustainable. Not that TikTok and Instagram don't occasionally roll out bonus programs or some sort of creator incentive program, but there's a lot less transparency around how you're earning the money, why that certain amount of money. Also, I think there are more algorithm changes on TikTok and Instagram. It's very hard to be a creator and kind of sustain a career on those platforms. I think you can have some luck. I think you can have a growth spurt, but I think beyond a year, 2 years, 3 years, I think after that, you sort of hit a plateau. The algorithm and the platform is looking for their next audience. Instagram has said that Gen Z is driving their product roadmap. Every feature that they roll out now is going to be focused on a Gen Z creator. So if you're not a Gen Z creator, you're out of luck. Whereas I look at YouTube as more receptive to all kinds of creators, whether it's long form, short form, Gen Z, millennial, Gen X, boomer. I think there's a lot more space to play. It's not necessarily easy. You have to have video production skills, video editing skills. So it's not that it's easier to make a go of it on YouTube, but I just think that YouTube is probably more supportive of the creator community overall.
Taking a bit of a hard pivot, but I do want to get some time to talk about a little more of just your reality and what you've built and how that's affected your life. I know everyone has different measures of success, financial freedom, but it seems like from the outside, like you've done quite well for yourself and built quite a business. Have you reached a certain point that you had in mind financially? And if anything else, just what's it like to own the means of your income generation where you can control that financial future and you're not reliant on someone else?
There's no end goal necessarily. I maybe the day that I pay off my mortgage is the day that I say,
Sure.
"All right, I'm done. Peace out, internet." I'll let you guys all know when that day happens. I would say there's not really an end. I'm a workaholic. I've been working since I was babysitting as a teenager. I am always going to do some sort of job, side hustle, whatever it is. I love what I do. I think I love even more. I very much had a great career in corporate. Now I have way more opportunities to work with more teams, more creators, more brands, go to more events, travel more. So I feel like this is almost like a reward for all of the hard work that I've
Yeah.
done previously. I don't necessarily subscribe to like do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Like work is still work. And there are weeks
Sure.
where I don't wanna write my newsletter. I don't wanna meet with my consulting clients. I have nothing to say about a brand sponsorship and I'm not feeling inspired. There are always weeks like that. But on the whole, yes, I love what I do and I very much enjoy it. So I think that just keeps going. I think most creators and influencers are entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you can't stop. There's always a new idea, a new project, a new thing to try, a new technology to use. So I don't see that stopping. I don't want to come off saying that money is not important. Money is important. You have to pay your bills. I don't necessarily do it for the money. I do it for the challenge and I do it for there's a particular brand I want to work with, I get to work with them, fantastic. There is a creator or an entrepreneur or a marketer or somebody who reaches out to me. I worked with Colin and Samir this summer. They're amazing
Cool.
YouTubers. They reached out and I was like, 100%. They are on my top 5 list of favorite creators. They reached out to me and I was like, "Yes, whatever it is that you wanna do, I'm gonna do because I am like, I'm in awe of them and I'm very impressed by everything that they put out." So that's an opportunity that I will say yes to. Somebody else comes to me, it's the project's boring, I don't like the company, there's not enough money involved. I don't know, whatever it is, it's like that is the stuff that I will turn down at this stage. I'm very much pursuing things that interest me or spark joy for me. And so those are the things that I enjoy doing. And again, just because I do wanna be, like, transparent about I'm at a stage in my career and the finances that I have a little bit more freedom to be able to just say yes and no to projects. If somebody is just getting started, they're 18, it's their first job, they're just beginning, they don't have any savings, I don't wanna say everyone should do this and just pick your passion project. Obviously, there are the realities of life, and you gotta be practical, and you gotta think about, is this going to pay me? Is this going to sustain me? So I think that is important. But for me, at this stage that I'm at, it's very much about choosing things that I love to do versus looking at it as who pays the most money and making sure I go after that opportunity. The one thing that I want to add as well is just I still love corporate. I still think there's a
Mm.
value. If somebody out there is saying, should I leave my corporate job? I do like it, but I do want to do this creator thing on the side. I love working at companies. When you're working at a company and you're getting a regular paycheck and you're getting health benefits, you go have lunch and like every second that you're chewing your sandwich, you're still getting paid. So there is a value. Like there is nothing wrong with that. You learn an incredible amount of information just because of all the inputs you're getting. You're growing your network. I think there's a huge benefit to if you're considering going freelance, first working within a company and trying to network as much as possible because those future people are going to be partners, they're going to be sponsors, they're going to be people that you're able to tap into later on. So I think there is an incredible value to working in house somewhere or even at an agency just for the connections that you make. And then when you are working independently, you can go back to, I know this person, I've worked on this project, I know somebody at this company. And so it does serve you. Yes, at this stage, I love what I do and I am very much looking to do this going forward. But I do think if you work at a company, that's fine too. And I think entrepreneurship is very put on a pedestal. And there are parts of it that are wonderful. And then there are parts of it that are really hard. If you're not an entrepreneur, that's okay. And if you are an entrepreneur, that's okay. There are benefits to both sides, I think.
I think we're seeing that too in this space, which is interesting and something we wanted to talk about on this podcast consistently is we've talked to creators who go back to a 9 to 5, but it does still change the nature of that relationship. They have a different sense of independence and probably like what they'll put up with in a corporate job.
Gen Z too. I think that Gen
Oh,
Z
yeah.
is past the bullshit, and I agree. Even if you're working at a company, you need boundaries. This job is not guaranteed for life. You are not getting a gold pocket watch after 40 or 50 years at a company. Yes, you are an independent business. They just happen to have contracted you for a certain period of time.
We'll get right back to the episode after this short message. Not to like call you out, but I'm hearing these two sides of you saying, goodbye, internet, see you later, but also you'll never stop this. So
Yeah,
is there is that just kind of always the angst of this weird space of being so public and also wanting a private life? Or do you have a point or a sense or a time when you think you'll turn the computer off and peace out?
I'm like full of contradictions, so I it's good for you to call me out on this. I think what I think about when I think about, okay, I'm not doing this anymore is being less obsessively online. I spend a
Mm,
lot of time and I think a lot of creators, influencers, marketers, we are all extremely online. When I say I'm going to log off, I think it's more I'd like to just scroll and look at my friends posts or family posts or just put something out there where I'm not thinking about how's this going to be interpreted? Am I teaching someone a valuable lesson? Have I shared my thought
mm,
leadership this week? So I think it's looking at it more as at some point, I would like to just be online as an independent civilian that is not thinking about what is the impact of the thing that I am posting. I love what I'm doing now, but I will also love the day when I'm able to just look at the internet as just something fun to do in between real life things. Of course, by that point, who knows what social and the internet's gonna be. I think I say that now, and I love the idea of just scrolling TikTok or Instagram or watching YouTube on my TV and just doing it for fun. I don't know if that is gonna be the method with which we consume information, entertainment, connect with friends. I really don't know that is gonna be the thing, especially listen, it will be for the next 5 years, but 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I think the whatever connectedness we have, and I don't wanna say it's the internet because who knows if it's the internet, but whatever interconnectedness we have with other people, I think is gonna look very different.
I'm hearing something I've heard from a lot of people in various industries, or I've experienced too. When I was a chef, I wished I could just have someone else cook for me. But
Yes, make a
I
peanut
do
butter
want to.
sandwich.
Yeah. Oh, I ate so poorly when I was a chef. I never cooked well for myself. It was such a burnout. But I do want to get some time to talk about what attracts you to this field of education, because there's a lot of ways to be an entrepreneur. I still think most people think of that in a classic sense of building a physical business or going and getting venture capital to build your great app idea or something like that. What I love about this industry and the people I talk to is there is still underneath it the choice of education and that deep desire to give the world what you didn't have. What attracts you to that and that being the core of your business and what drives you forward?
I think the old way of being an entrepreneur or building a business, you kind of alluded to it, was you came up with a product idea and then you went to find the audience. The new way is you build the audience and then you figure out what is the value that I bring to these people? What is the business or the product that I can then create and launch? So I do prefer it in that way. I think it's much more democratic. I think it's much more accessible to people. So I kind of like that. I mean, in terms of being an entrepreneur educator, I think being a creator or an influencer, for example, you have one of two choices moving forward. And it's either to be an entertainer, to provide great content, to provide emotional type content, to provide really relatable content, vulnerable content. And then maybe you end up getting an actual job in an entertainment field. There's a lot of creators who want to go in that direction to be red carpet hosts. They want to be on TV shows. They want to create movie length or TV length content. The easiest one to think of is Mr. Beast. He's very much building kind of more of an traditional style entertainment model. And then the other way I think is more of kind of entrepreneur expertise. I'm not entertaining. I'm not funny. I'm not particularly vulnerable. I've talked with other influencers and we've talked about that. And I'm like, I do not express vulnerability online. I'm just a very private, closed person. Yes, I put a lot out there, but that is the stuff that I choose to put out there. Most people have no idea what I do when I put down my phone, when I shut my laptop, my family, what I do personally. I'm just not I'm not a vulnerable person and I'm not really interested in putting that all out there. So I couldn't go the entertainment route. So I think about going the expert entrepreneur route because that's the thing that's available to me. And like you said, it is very much a I'm trying to create what I didn't have and I would like other people to be able to have. So in terms of, which direction I was going to go in, it was pretty obvious that this was the path. I'm not even sure I chose it. I think it's just what I naturally gravitated to.
entrepreneurship is changing the state of the world and business, especially after pandemic and seeing how globally unstable the economy could be. Education is this powerful kind of democratizing way to get into it. I haven't really talked to anyone like you who is teaching online, but also teaching in a conventional college and in that environment.
Yeah.
Do you feel like colleges are keeping up enough that they're gonna stay relevant when more and more teachers are finding there's other ways to make money and find an impact out there?
It's a good question. I think there is a big difference between a college style course and online learning. At the most basic level, the distinction that I have observed is the college style course is much more, I would say, interactive. You discuss ideas and which I think is good for me because I tend to ramble. So there's a lot of rambling and there's a lot of looking at it's neither black or white, but let's examine why we have these attitudes, why we're doing this in a way that I find is much more kind of free form. Whereas learning online, I think just by nature of how you're marketing a course to somebody, or not even a course, even like a newsletter, a YouTube channel, anything that you're putting out online really needs to be packaged in a much more succinct way of here's exactly what you are going to get out of this information from me. Here's the transformation you're going to undergo. Here's the learning that you're going to get out of this. And then it's very much packaged in here's 7 modules. You're going to learn exactly X, Y, and Z. And I think that personally, I think there's a value to both. But maybe that is the distinction that I see. Whereas I feel like if I did something learning online and I said, hey, let's talk about it. There's no real right or wrong answer. Let's just explore and freeform and spend the next 3 hours just going back and forth. I'm not sure that lends itself to the way that the internet likes things to be packaged in a very kind of
Mm,
clean and concise, templated, structured way. So that's the difference. Do I think that the academic way is the only way to do it? No, because I think you have to incorporate, and I hope that I bring this to my students. What I try and incorporate is a little bit of that kind of free form rambling. Let's examine why we think this way, why people are doing this, what are the causes behind this, plus some of the maybe more entertainment style up to the minute relevant information that people are exchanging online. And I think that if you can meet in the middle somewhere where you're combining a little bit of both, I think that the academic model needs some more of that structure, some more of that relevant. If you start your job tomorrow, here's the top 3 things that I want you to be thinking about. Like, I think
sure.
academia needs some of that. And I think that online discussion needs a little bit more of that background, that context. Like, let's have a conversation about this. And somewhere in the middle to me is the perfect mix. I try and bring that to the classes that I teach at UCLA. I hope that I achieve that with my students. You'd have to ask them like how well I'm nailing that format of the kind of that hybrid format, but I'm hoping that they get it. UCLA Extension reached out to me in 2018, and that was why they hired me as a professional. I'm not a professor. I was not a trained teacher. They reached out to me as somebody working in the industry who was a professional who they felt could bring value to the students. So I'm hoping that is what I deliver on for them.
I love that UCLA is doing that because I've talked to a few creators saying, like, that's what they think the academic system needs is just more people actually out there doing the thing, not who did it 20 years ago and have an opinion about it.
So hard. College now, like things change so quickly. From week to week, if you're using a textbook that was written in the 80s or the 90s, it's so out of touch with what is happening right now. I agree.
Leah, it's been a blast getting to know you a bit, getting to talk to you. Before we wrap up, I just have some rapid fire questions for you so you can answer in as short as you like. First, whatever little piece of advice you have to be a good teacher.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, I ramble. I'm not great at these quick fire answers. To be a good teacher, it's something I struggle with. It's not about the information that you're providing to people, it's about the transformation they're looking to have. What are they trying to get out of this? What is their North Star goal? And that's what you're trying to help them to get to. It's not just a data dump. And I've struggled with this of not just giving them more and more information.
What's a brand you want to work with but haven't yet? Call them out here.
Pinterest. Pinterest is it's pretty, it's positive. I would love to work with Pinterest.
What's the difference between an influencer and a creator?
Such a good question. I love this one. An influencer is somebody who has an audience that will take an action based on what they post, whether it's reading something, buying something, going somewhere. A creator is someone that might be an influencer, but isn't necessarily an influencer. They create content that really resonates and is very relatable to online audiences. So, not all creators are influencers, but most influencers are creators because by the nature of having to put content online, influencers are both influencers and creators.
Do you still say Twitter? Will you ever say X?
It's always going to be Twitter. I'm still on it. I'm not particularly happy about it, but yeah, I'm on that platform, unfortunately, until they turn off the lights.
Who's a celebrity or big creator who you think should have an online course?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, you know who should have an online course? Alex Earl.
Ooh,
A TikToker, Alex Earl. She's a business student from the University of Miami. She set up a scholarship at the University of Miami. She has a strong respect for academia and the college system, but is also an amazing creator. And I think she would both value being able to teach other people. I think people would get a ton out of it. And I think she has a lot to teach.
Leah, been such a blast talking to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun conversation.
Leah is a perfect example of how you can be smart and strategic in building your own business in this creator economy. I hope you learned as much as I did today, found something you can apply to your life, and if nothing else, were inspired by Leah's story to take a hard look at your 9-to-5 work and make sure the way you work is working for you. If you want to join the thousands of other creative entrepreneurs who are building an income out of their impact, click the link in the description to join the club and learn how Teachable can help you do the same. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our recommended next episode linked here. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.